Hello and welcome everyone to the Difference Makers Show, where it's your time to get inspired by learning from difference makers, today's thought leaders who are here to give you their insights and tips and wisdom so you can make a bigger difference in the world. I'm Lynn Sanders, your host, and I am so excited to have you here. Welcome to all of you. For everyone listening, please type in your name and where you're hanging out from in the chat box on this page so we can acknowledge you. You're also welcome to type in any questions or comments that you have. I want to first thank our webmaster and dear friend, Roland Takaoka, for being here to monitor our common stream to help us with all its technical details. I couldn't do it without you, Roland. I am so grateful. And now I want to introduce you to our special guest, Eric Lofholm of Eric Lofholm International, a master sales trainer. And before I even go into his bio, I want to say how grateful I am, Eric, to have you here, how honored. I even want to just throw out a bold statement this morning by saying, I think for everyone listening to this program, whether it's live or on the replay, I strongly believe that the wisdom that Eric is going to give you today can change your life. Yes, I mean that. I was on a call this morning with Eric, and you will learn today how you can get on regular calls with Eric. And I heard this message that he gave. I want to just share this first before his bio that really hit me strongly. You know, I'm a story creator, I'm a storyteller, and I love to share stories. And Eric said, we experience reality through the stories that we tell ourselves. So what stories are you telling yourself about you? And how do you go about changing it if you're not getting the results you want? You are going to learn today how to get those results you want. Eric has taught thousands of people through his proven sales system for over 19 years. He also has a program that you're going to be able to have access to and all kinds of valuable materials. He has delivered over 1,500 private and public presentations, and he's the author of 15 books. He's best known as a sales trainer and sales coach who has delivered results to many, many people all across the world. So without further ado, I can go on and on. I want to welcome you, Eric, to the Difference Makers. Thank you for being here.
Lynn, you're welcome. I'm excited to be here and share some great ideas with all the people listening and watching from all over the world.
Thank you. You know, also, I wanted to tell everyone, Eric is very modest but he says that sales means giving, and you're going to get a lot from him. So, Eric, I would like you first to share your story, because it's always easy for people to think, well, Eric already knows what to do, and he's been successful for his whole life. So, would you tell us your personal story of how you grew and developed into becoming a master sales trainer?
Yeah, now I have an international sales training company. I've written 15 books on sales and success. I travel the world and so forth, but I didn't start off as a success. I really struggled early on in my career. My first job, my joke is I made over 100,000, my very first job I ever had right out of high school, except I made over 100,000 hamburgers. I was a cook at McDonald's. And I was going to community college, which you're supposed to go to for 2 years. I went for 5 years and never graduated. I'm still a couple of units shy of the AA degree. So back then in my early 20s, my late teens, I lacked confidence. I didn't have a good success foundation. I was just kind of wandering aimlessly through life, and everything changed for me, and it changed through associations and mentors. And I had the good fortune of meeting my first mentor in my early 20s. He was a multi-millionaire real estate investor. His name was Dante Perano. And I ended up going to work for him. And I started like rubbing the shoulders with greatness. And in associating with Dante, it changed how I thought about things. And our mind is a very powerful thing. And things only have the meaning that we give them. And I had never been trained on how to think in a successful manner. And that started happening for me when I started associating with Dante. And that led me to many other great mentors, including my sales mentor, Dr. Donald Moyne, who taught me the art and science of selling. And so the thing that made the biggest difference for me early on in my career was learning how to think differently and my associations with mentors.
That's really so important. People don't, I think, realize how important it is to monitor how you think. Now, when we talked earlier, excuse me, you had mentioned that you yourself had a major challenge after becoming very successful with your personal life. Would you mind sharing a little bit of what happened and how you changed to overcome that major obstacle?
Yeah, Jim Rohn, the famous speaker, one of the things that he said when he was alive was that life is like the seasons. And so we've got summer and spring and winter and fall. And to me, summer's a metaphor for when everything's going great in your life. And winter's a metaphor for struggle. And like probably all of you out there watching this, I've gone through my fair share of struggles, especially being an entrepreneur and a small business owner. I've had my ups and downs. And I started my company in 1999. And in 2003, I was 32 years old. And I was on track, Lynn, for my first $1 million year. I mean, wow. I was knocking the ball out of the park. It's like everything I touched worked.
Wow.
And I had 20 people working for me. And a series of events happened. And one of my core people that worked for me decided he wanted to go start his own company. And that's a pretty common thing. People, they become successful. They want to leave, go to their own thing or whatnot. And he ended up recruiting away my core team. So they exited with him all at the same time. And I went from a staff of 20 to a staff of 1. And that happened in 30 days. And so here it is. It's like, if you asked me before all this happened, Eric, how's everything going? Oh my gosh, Lynn, it's amazing. It's never been better. I'm having so much success. And it like instantly the rug got pulled out from underneath me. And I was in a commercial office lease for 3 years that I had personally guaranteed. I had to break the lease. I was on the hook for a significant amount of money. The creditors started calling me because my cash flow dried up. I had to go home and have this conversation with my wife and share with her that we went from doing great to now we were in dire straits financially, which created an extraordinary amount of stress in our marriage. And I felt a sense of betrayal because I had mentored this gentleman who then took my team with him. So, it was an extremely financially challenging time, emotionally challenging. My marriage was on the rocks because of this situation. I was confused. I didn't know what to do. And it happens that way at times, when things are going well and then all of a sudden they're not. A health situation shows up, a financial situation. We have a setback, and this was an extreme setback. And it was one of the most challenging times of my life.
Of course, I can imagine. So how did you get out of that, and what happened?
Yeah, I would wake up in the morning and I was in a depression, and I'd want to take the covers and pull them back up over my head and just wish it would all go away. And obviously that wasn't going to change anything. And I got a thought one day, and any of you that are watching this right now, you might be wrestling with a decision in your life. And then all of a sudden this thought pops in your head and you're like, that's it. That's what I need to do. And it was very simple. And the thought was, because I was in such financial dire straits, I needed revenue. And in this depressed state, I was doing the opposite, Lynn, of what I was supposed to do. I wasn't going out there growing my business because I was just feeling sorry for myself. And the thought that popped into my head was to focus on revenue producing activities. And when that thought entered my mind, something just said, that's what you need to do right now. You need to park your problems over to the side. And during the workday, you need to go out and do that. And to me, focusing on revenue producing activities was generating leads, setting appointments, and running sales calls. And so I let go somehow, some way of this depressed state, and I began to focus. And it's one of the things about life is you get what you focus on. And even in this down depressed state, I was able to pivot and focus on this much more productive activity. And what started happening, I learned that small wins creates confidence. And so as I started taking better actions, I started feeling better, even though hardly any money was coming in, but a little bit of money was coming in, and I had experienced an energetic shift within myself And from that shift, I started taking more action. And as I was taking more action, more money came in. And then eventually I got into momentum. And I was upside down at that point, about $150,000. And it took me 18 months, but I turned it all around. And it was literally a pivot in my focus. And there may be somebody watching this right now, and maybe you're in dire financial straits like I was. And if you can get yourself to go, what are the things that I can do right now that are going to better my financial situation? And a lot of success, it's kind of like watching your fingernails grow. If you look at your fingernails right now and you look at them, you can't see them grow, but we know they're growing.
Right.
And this is why I think so many people aren't getting the results that they want, because they, like, let's just say somebody's trying to lose weight and they start eating better, they get on the scale, they're not getting the results they want, and they go, it's not working. But they haven't stuck with it long enough. And so success is an everyday thing. Consistency is the key. And so it's really about us making a decision about how we're going to show up on a daily basis. And some days it's out raining, right? Metaphorically in our life. But we still have to show up as a parent. You got to show up for your kids or your spouse or your clients or whatever. And I think what people do is they give themselves excuses at times to take days off. Well, it's raining out metaphorically. I'm having a hard time. I'm having a challenge with my spouse. So I'm going to take a day off of what's going on in my life. And they miss out on the consistency. And so my challenge to myself, my commitment is to play at a 7, 8, 9, or a 10 on a scale of 1 to 10 every day. Rain or shine, my good days or my bad days, whether I'm having a challenge with my kids or my wife or my health or my finances or whatever's going on, because we all face challenges.
Right. It's so
and I think
true.
some people go, well, I'm facing challenges, therefore, and then it's the lack of stepping up. And one thing I learned, I used to work for Tony Robbins, and I learned from him, like, you can step up anytime. There's nothing that needs to happen in order for you to step up. And so I've just learned that as I go through challenges, and I still go through them even to this day, I've learned how to continue to take strides forward as best I can. And as Jim Rohn says, life is like the seasons. We don't get stuck in winter. Mm-hmm. Summer will come around as long as you continue to take the right actions.
Wow. Those are amazing quotes and good insights. You know, I think it's also really powerful what you did in your focus, Eric, because like you just said, you took your mind off the problems and said, what can I do right now? And the other thing which you have mentioned to some people, you haven't brought it up here, is that at home, your personal life changed too. And that, to me, coming from a space where I've had some major challenges at home and had to change my focus, is also a really big challenge. Can you just share a little bit of what happened? Because then we're going to get to the tips of how we can apply what you learned for other people to, grow from. What happened at home and how did you change your focus?
Yeah. So do you want me to talk about the other story that happened later on in my life?
If you wouldn't mind, you can kind of give us a short version of it, because I think everybody.
2003. And I had a lot of success in 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003. The wheels fell off my business and I got it back on track, and I was full steam ahead in 2004. Well, I continued on with my business. And in 2013, I ended up going through a divorce. And I had been married for over 20 years at the time. My kids are still small. Right now they're 13 and 16. But back in 2003, they were much younger. And I was living in a 6-bedroom house. On the outside, if you looked at my life, it looked pretty darn good. I had a successful business, 20+ year marriage, my 2 children. Life looked really, really great. And my marriage fell apart. And a series of events happened. And I ended up moving from my 6-bedroom house into a 2-bedroom apartment. And my children were with me some of the time. They're with their mom some of the time. And I have a boy and a girl. And I just didn't feel that it was right to have my son and daughter sharing the same room. Again, we're in a 2-bedroom apartment. So I chose to sacrifice, and my kids each had their own room, which meant for a period of time, I was sleeping on my couch in the living room. And here to the outside world, I'm an international sales trainer. But in my inner world, this is what I was dealing with. And there was a lot of shame that I was dealing with going through my divorce. There's a stigma to getting divorced in our culture. There is this thought of, the material things that we have, like the size of our house or the car we drive or so forth. And here I am, living in this little apartment. And there was a lot of shame and there was a lot of embarrassment. And again, I had to just continue on taking the right actions. And eventually I re-put my life back together. I'm now remarried. I'm shooting this here. We're in my, beautiful 5-bedroom house. And I've been able to put my life back together in a very powerful way. But I went through a very dark time. My divorce was the most challenging emotional thing that I ever experienced. There were days that I would cry most of the day. There were my good days. There were my challenging days. And that went on for a period of about 18 months. And I share that on this with you right now, Lynn, because there may be somebody watching right now, and maybe you have gone through some challenges, whether it was a divorce like myself, or maybe you had to shut a business down, or maybe your house got foreclosed on, and you felt some shame or embarrassment. And what I want to tell you is your best days are in front of you, even if you have experienced struggle. And one of my core philosophies is do the next right thing. So wherever you're at in your life right now, I ask yourself, what's the next right thing? And the next right thing might be getting out of bed and going to work. The next right thing might be sending a text to your son or daughter and telling them that you love them. And I do my best to live my life with that philosophy. And as I've gone through my ups.
Uh-oh. I'm not hearing some audio here. I don't know if you can hear me or.
I can hear you.
Okay, now I can hear you. For a second, I just lost you. I'm going to unplug this. So Eric, I really appreciate you being so open. That's something I have admired about you from the start, is you are so authentic. You don't hide behind anything, and you let people know that you've gone through your struggles and you figured out how to get out of them, and other people can do the same. So let's move on to a topic that a lot of people deal with and have difficulty with, and that's sales resistance. When I even wrote the title for this program, Building Your Sales Success, I was thinking that some people might think of this as just being a salesperson and how to get better at being a salesperson. But ultimately, we're all salespeople, as you know, whatever service or product you're involved with, because we have to sell ourselves. So how do we overcome our resistance in sales to be successful?
Yeah, it comes back to thoughts. It comes back to how you're viewing sales. The common way that people view sales, there's a stigma to sales in our culture. People think of sales as arm twisting, high pressure, manipulation. If your mindset is that sales is arm twisting, high pressure manipulation, you will resist sales for the rest of your life. So it's a paradigm shift, and it's taking a broader view on sales. Instead of looking at sales as, hey, it's this activity that I do in my business. And yes, it is an activity in our business. But if we look at sales from selling as a style of communication that increases the likelihood that the other person says yes. So if I look at it from that viewpoint, if I want more yeses in my life, then I want to learn the art and science of selling, because it is predictable. There are specific ways that you can influence the likelihood that the other person says yes. Something as simple as saying, does that make sense? Right. They're going to say yes. Are you following what I'm saying? Can you see the big picture here? See, these are all language patterns that guide somebody to say yes. And so the good news is anybody can learn it with proper training. The second piece around selling is to change your view of selling. And what I teach is selling equals service. Sell from honesty, integrity, and compassion. Selling is about leading. Selling is about moving people to action. So if somebody's watching this and they have resistance to sales and they go, okay, it makes sense for me, if possible, to let go of that resistance. So it starts with that intention. I want to learn to let go of resistance. And then you start looking for these solutions, people like myself that can teach you how to overcome resistance to sales and actually how to become really successful at it if you want to be. And all of a sudden, it creates this whole new possibility that people never even thought was something that was available to them. I started off as a sales failure. My first year in commission sales, I was the bottom producer. And once I was properly trained, then I excelled, and I have had these skills now for the rest of my career. So I love teaching people step by step, easy to follow ideas on how they can become more successful in selling. And it does start with being open to the mindset of letting go of sales resistance.
And how do we start with letting go? I love your systems too. Share with us how do we get that first start?
Yeah, so change begins in language. So the stories that people tell themselves, you're a storyteller. You're talking about storytelling. Well, the story people tell themselves is, I'm not good at sales. I don't like sales. I'm not good at asking for the order. Well, if you live in that story, that's your reality. And so we have to look at the situation. You know, when my business fell apart back in 2003, I had to create a new story. At first, I was in this denial and betrayal that I was experiencing. But then I had to pivot and go, okay, I got to get back to work and create a new story. And when I repaired my personal life, I had to create a new story about what the future was going to be like. The future, by definition, doesn't exist. All we have is the present moment. Life is a series of continuous present moments. So we can imagine a compelling future. So you can change any story you want. Look, our life is whatever story we tell. If I say to you, Lynn, tell me about your childhood, whatever you say, that's your story. Well, let's say I had a crummy childhood, right? I grew up with a divorced parents like so many kids did. I can tell the story any way I want. I can say, hey, here's what happened, and this was the bad. Or I can say, you know, it was really great. I was raised by my dad and my stepmom, and thank God I had a stepmom that was able to come in and be there for me when my mom wasn't able to. Or I can say, oh, I had this lousy stepmom and she was a tyrant. It's true either way.
Right.
So in your selling, what's your sales story? And the question is, does the story serve you? You know, if you're a small business owner and you're like, I'm not good at sales, and then on the other hand, you're like, I want to grow my business. They're incongruent. It's like, what do you want? Now, what's the story need to be? Because I can tell the story any way I want to tell the story. I can say I'm not successful because I'm a college dropout, or I can say, despite the fact that I'm a college dropout, I'm successful. And it's true either way.
Right.
So,
where's your focus?
Yeah. And we get to decide. When I was 28 years old, I decided I'm going to go be the Zig Ziglar of my generation. I just declared that. And so then I started having actions consistent with that. So now I get invited onto wonderful shows like yours that have an international audience. Well, how did I manifest this? Because when I was 28 years old, I said I'm the Zig Ziglar of my generation. And that became my story. And so I chose the story. And that's something that I think a lot of people don't think about. They're like, they don't realize the power that they have.
Right.
You know, when I went through the divorce, I could have said, oh, I messed up my personal life, and that's just the way it's going to be. Or I said, you know what? I'm going to go find another woman that her personal life maybe didn't work out so good, and we'll have her happily ever after.
Right.
And then that's what I was able to create.
So, you know what I love that you are mentioning, you were saying an affirmation to yourself. You're going to be the Zig Ziglar of your generation. Tell us more about affirmations and how everyone listening can take advantage of different affirmations to change their reality.
Yeah, the thing is, if you've never been trained on affirmations, you might think it's just kind of this hocus pocus, like, you know, out there concept, woo woo, right? But it's not. A couple of specific tangible things you guys can take away from this. The law of belief is whatever you tell yourself over and over and over again, you'll eventually believe. The law of belief is whatever you tell yourself over and over and over again, you'll eventually believe. So when I first started saying I'm the Zig Ziglar of my generation, I've said it thousands of times. I just keep saying it over and over and over. And I put that thought into my unconscious mind through law of belief. Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich talks about auto-suggestion, which is where you say an affirmation repeatedly over and over and over again. And so if somebody says, a student says, I'm not good at math, that's their story. Change the story. They could say, instead of that, each day I'm getting better and better at math. Each day I'm getting better and better at math. Or eventually I'll be an A student in math. The student that says I'm not good at math is probably a C student their whole career. Or they say, eventually I'm going to be an A student. My son came home to me freshman year after 1 week of his freshman year, he said, I'm going to get a C in Spanish. He declares it. I'm getting a C in Spanish. What are you talking about? I said, this is my son. I said, no, you're not. I said, let's look at it. What would it take to get an A or a B? And I helped him understand what that would look like, and he got a B. And he's had Spanish, I think, 4 semesters. He's never once gotten a C. I think he's got a B every single time. Well, we changed the story. If I hadn't gotten a hold of him, thank God I'm his dad, right? Because if I hadn't got a hold of him, he probably would have been straight C's, and he'd think, oh, I'm a C student in Spanish.
Right.
Why? Because that's what he declared. But I shifted the thinking, and we can do this in all areas of our life. Somebody's watching this, they're trying to lose weight. They tried all these different diets. And their story is, every time I try a diet, I never follow through. So what's going to happen with that story the next time they start a diet? They're not going to follow through. I can never get myself to lose the weight. Every time I lose the weight, I put it right back on. And then they manifest that. And they go, what's wrong with me? Well, nothing's wrong. You're perfect. You're experiencing your story.
Exactly.
So create a new story. What do you want? And make that your story and speak that.
I love that. Yeah, people don't realize that their brains are absorbing everything they're saying, right? We're computers, and we're telling ourselves what we are going to experience. That's what you're saying. Yep. So how do people improve, let's say, their performance if they're going to, they know they're going to have an appointment and they're going to want to close at this appointment? What would you recommend they do?
What I do is before I start the presentation, I decide in advance what's going to happen. So I had a webinar that I was doing yesterday where I was selling. And I thought, all right, I want to get 10 sales. So I do the webinar, and I think right now I'm at 8 sales. So I didn't hit the 10, but I went in with the 10. And there's a power in that, being clear on the exact result that you want to produce. So let's say you're a real estate agent, you want to get the listing. You want them to sign the listing contract at the end of the appointment. Cool. So my intention is to go in and get the contract signed. I'm clear that that's the result that I want to produce. And now you can reverse engineer it. And now you walk in with the expectation that you're going to produce that result. Whereas somebody else goes into that listing appointment, they go, hey, whatever happens is going to happen. You can exert your will on a lot of different situations. So you see this in sports all the time. There's a game, maybe it's basketball, it's a 48-minute game. There's 3 minutes left in the game. The team's down by 10, and they come back and they win. They outscore the other team by more than 10 points in the last 3 minutes. You see this in sports all the time. Tennis, football, basketball, soccer, it doesn't matter. What's happening? The team exerts their will on the other team and they win. Well, we can do that in business. You can do that, Lynn. Any guest you want to get on this show, any guest, you can exert your will. And you can decide you want, Michael Gerber from eMyth. Let's say you want Michael Gerber, who's a big name. And you just decide in your mind, Michael Gerber's going to be on my show. And then you communicate, and it'll change your language because of your intention. And he'll feel that. Now, it doesn't mean he's going to be on the show, but he'll feel your intention. And I've done this over and over and over and over and over again in my life, where I consciously exert my will on a situation. Now, I can't make somebody buy from me. I can't make somebody co-author a book with me. I can't make them be on my show. I can't cause that, but I can exert my will. And then they feel, wow, Eric really wants me to coach him, or Eric really wants me to be on his show, or Eric really wants me to be a guest speaker at his event. I got Jay Abraham. Jay's one of the top marketing experts in the world. He charges, I don't know, I think it's like 50 grand a speech, so some huge number. Jay came and spoke at my event for free.
Wow. Wow. Yes, I've heard him speak.
I exerted my will on that situation. Okay. Now, I didn't talk him into it. He decided, but he felt my commitment, and he wanted to support what I was doing. Something in it, he's like, okay, I want to help Eric with what he's doing, and so I'm going to waive my fee, and I'm going to support him.
Right. Well, I think we're talking about something that is really deep here. It's this law of spiritual attraction, and that you are attracting what you want into your life by your law of belief. And it's also acknowledging that we all operate on a level beyond our physical, that we are.
Yeah, let me give you an interesting thing. I believe that people connect with us on a soul level.
Yes.
And so what happens is, like, early in my career, I was not as confident as I am now. And so I might meet somebody really successful, and they may express interest in doing business with me, but I'm lacking confidence. Like, well, why would this person want to be doing business with me early in my career? And what I eventually discovered is that people connect with us on a soul level. So I could be meeting with Mark Benioff, who I've never met, but if I was, he's a multi-billionaire. He owns Salesforce.com. And if I have a coffee meeting with Mark Benioff might connect with me on a soul level.
Exactly.
And if that happens, he might want to do business with me. It has nothing to do with my age. It has nothing to do with if I'm wearing a fancy suit. It has nothing to do with my haircut. It doesn't matter if I'm ethnical background, religious background. None of that matters. He's connecting with me on something that's different. And so this is a very powerful thing that anybody who's watching this, you could be just getting started in your career and you don't feel like you haven't written the books and you don't have the track record and the credibility and the resume, but somebody could connect with you on a soul level. And if that happens, the resume doesn't matter. I mean, it's good to get the resume and it's good to get the books written and all the credibility is, it works. And I'm glad I have it now. Okay. But there's this other piece where people are they're connecting with us. And this is why it's so important to put yourself out there, because like you and I, we have a connection that's beyond just a client connection. Me supporting you, you supporting me. There's something going on where I'm drawn to you, you're drawn to me.
Exactly.
And the only way to create that is you got to put yourself out there. So you put yourself out there, and then that's like what happened with my wife. When I met my wife, we had that soul-like connection, and I knew within a week of meeting her, I'm like, I want to marry her if she wants to marry me. And I didn't tell her that, Lynn, because I didn't want to scare her, right? It's like, I've known you a week. I want to marry you. I kept that to myself. But eventually that's what happened. And there was a connection that was deeper and different. And I knew it instantly. I knew it literally instantly because it was something that was there. And so we can do that in business, like what you and I have. You can do this with your clients. You can do this with joint venture partners, but you got to put yourself out there. And somebody goes, well, I don't have the resume yet, or my website doesn't look, who cares? Put yourself out there. And yes, eventually get the website great and get the books done and get the resume built and all that. But we got to start somewhere. And that soul level, if I have the resume and the books and all that, but I don't connect with somebody on a soul level, it's not as powerful. I would rather connect with somebody on a soul level and not have all this stuff. Now, the best case scenario is you got both.
Right. You know, what you're saying is so good, because I think most of us who want to succeed, we all have to realize we have to face our fears. Like you said, connecting on a soul level, we have to be willing to go up to people who are far more successful than we are and ask them if they would appear. Just like I had to take the courage to say, hey, Eric, would you consider being on my show? You know?
Yeah. And you make a great point. And let me reframe the idea of fear. Okay. So when I reach out and prospect people, it isn't a fear experience for me because of how I think about it. I'm in agreement with you. People have a fear around reaching out. But here's my mindset, and it's made me a small fortune. No's are no big deal. No's are no big deal. So, for example, like in your situation, you have this awesome show. It's very attractive. Lots of people are going to want to be on your show. All right. Well, you could reach out to Oprah, and you can say, "Hey, Oprah, it's Lynn. Hey, I loved your show, Oprah. I want you to be on my show." Now, it's like she's probably going to say no. All right. But no's are no big deal. And so when I'm prospecting, I understand I'm putting myself out there, and the rhythm of prospecting is no, 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 yes. No, 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 yes. So most of the time they don't say yes. And I understand that. So I get that when I'm prospecting, I'm just putting it out there, and then they're either going to respond or they're not, whatever I'm inviting them to. Okay. And like, let's say today I do 10 prospecting touches. I reach out to 10 people and I don't get one yes. I pat myself on the back. I go, Eric, good job. You did good today, Eric. And I got my teeth kicked in metaphorically because I didn't get any yeses, but I don't care, because I know when you take the right actions, you get the right results. So if my goal is to reach out to 10 people today, then if I do that, I'd say great job. Now, if I get a yes, cool. I'm going to get yeses. Eventually, I'm going to get yeses. I built my company from scratch. I have an international sales training organization. I started off at 28. I didn't have one client. I had no database. I had no books. I had a crummy website. I had a bad business plan. But I was willing to do no, yes. And I kept doing that. And eventually, I just developed this philosophy that no's are no big deal. So I could go prospect Mark Benioff today, no problem. Multi-billionaire, Salesforce.com. If I wanted to reach out to him, I could just reach out to him. And, he would say whatever he says.
Right.
But let's say he didn't even respond. Eric, good job. Let's say he responds and goes, I already have somebody that helps you with sales training. Eric, good job. Let's say he goes, Eric, let's have coffee. Eric, it's a good job no matter what.
Right.
And so if people can get that, a realtor, a loan officer, a network marketer, a coach, for a coach to fill up their coaching practice, all they have to do is reach out to people and offer a free coaching session. Hey, here's what I coach people on. I'd like to offer you a free session. And then you do the free session, you give them an experience in coaching, you ask them if they want to become a client. Any coach, if they just did that, would have a full practice eventually, if they're a good coach. And I hear this all the time from coaches. Eric, I'm a good coach, but I don't have any clients. Okay, well, you got to do the prospecting part that I'm talking about. And all of a sudden, it transforms possibility.
Exactly. You have to put the steps in place to get the success. We have so much to say. I know we could go on. I wanted to run a little late on purpose because I really want everyone to hear what you're saying because there's so much you have to offer. One of the points that I had said we were going to talk about, and we could at least touch on it briefly, is how do you use social media to build your sales? So let's take it to that level now. How do you
so probably just about all of you watching us right now, you're on social media. I'm on Facebook. I'm on multiple platforms. So my main platform is Facebook. Maybe you're a Snapchatter. Maybe you're an Instagrammer. Maybe you're a YouTuber. Maybe you're multiple platforms. I use social media, and you'll love this, Lynn, to tell my story. Okay? I control the content. So I get to tell my story on social media. Now, here's what's interesting. Did you know you can tell your story on Google? And here's what I mean. Somebody Googles you. You Google Eric Lofholm. What's going to show up on page 1? All my social medias. I control the narrative on Google. Now, if there's some negative stuff about me, fortunately there isn't. But if there was, that's likely to be there too. But I control page 1 because page 1 is my YouTube channel, my Amazon.com, my LinkedIn, my Facebook. So I would use social media to tell your story. And then people go on social media and they talk about how they're feeling sick today. And I'm going, what is that going to attract? Who wants to read about that you have a cold today? Like, I get you want to express that. I'm not criticizing anybody that does that. I'm just saying, look, we're telling our story. So, people, they're going through challenges in their relationship and they put that out there on social media. When I was going through all the stuff I was going through my divorce, I talked about it today. When I was going through it, I didn't talk about it. That's not the time.
Right.
It's when you get on the other side of it. Okay. When my business was falling apart, I wasn't talking about that. I was still out there telling my story of success, controlling the narrative. So I use social media to promote my business. I tell a story of success. And mine, the big part, is the story of family. Because I have 4 kids, ages 11 to 16. And so I take my trip to Disneyland and I post my photos and I talk about that. And people are drawn to that. They like that. They like seeing, okay, here's somebody who, Eric's a businessman, but he's a committed family man. He's a devoted dad and he's a devoted husband. And I get to see a different side of him than I see in business. And so social media gives you that opportunity to allow people, and we talked about connecting on a soul level. It lets people connect with you in a different way. And so there's a huge opportunity for you to tell your story, whatever that story is that you want to put out there using your various channels.
Exactly. So you get to decide what you want to say about yourself. Whatever you want to say. And as Eric's saying, you don't want to focus on anything negative because you don't want to draw more negative. Right, Eric?
That's right.
So we are running out of time, and I wanted to give extra time because we had to start a little bit late. Eric has systems in place that can teach you step by step how to succeed. In fact, I just signed up for his sales scripting course, which I'm very excited about because I am very aware of the power words, and yet it's always good to have another person help you and analyze what you're doing so you can get feedback and build your business even better. So let's turn to what Eric offers. And Eric, I'm going to have Roland pull up close up of the slides. Can you tell us a little bit about your free gift that you're going to be giving everyone right now?
Yeah, I have 3 sales training videos, one on generating leads, one on setting appointments, one on closing sales. And then I include a PDF copy of my best-selling book, The System. And so there's 4 pieces of content, great content, totally free. And so there's a link there. And if you go to that link, you can just put in your email address and you'll get instant access to these great free tools.
I made it easy to remember under bit.ly gift from Eric with a capital G, capital F, capital E, and you will get instant access. You just put in your name and information, and you'll get Eric's book and his training videos. And I can just assure you it's very, very worthwhile. And as I said at the beginning of this interview, I feel that what you're going to get here can literally change your life, because sales is all about who we are and who we see ourselves. Roland, could you go to the next slide of how you can contact Eric directly? So Eric, let's go back, Roland, one more. So those who want to send an email to Eric, Eric is giving you his personal email. Now, I can tell you this is not something that everyone does. Many times we get an info at something. Eric is going to be there reading what you have to say. And then he has 2 sites, saleschampion.com, and the next one, I'd like Eric to say a little bit about this. I just discovered his second site myself this morning, and that's how I got on a call with him. Eric, tell us about the salestipsforsmartpeople.com site.
Yeah, my trainers and I, 5 days a week, we do a little 15-minute motivational call to get you off to a great start. So it's just like you plug in for 15 minutes, puts you in a great mindset to have a great day. So at 7:45 a.m. California time, Monday through Friday, we do a little 15-minute call to get you off to a great start. And that's at different times depending on where you are in the world. And we always record it. So it's a podcast. It's available on the internet. It's available on iTunes. And you can find all the information if you want to plug in occasionally or even once a day. If you want to plug into these calls, you can find all that information at salestipsforsmartpeople.com. And then my cell phone is up there. That's my personal cell phone. And I love to hear from you guys. So if you enjoyed this interview, if I said something that was impactful for you, shoot me a little text. Hey, Eric, I was on that with you and Lynn, and what you said about whatever, what you said about your marriage, what you said about your business challenge, what you said about overcoming sales adversity, that was really impactful. I would love for you to send me a personal text. It's right there, the cell phone. And then I have a team of coaches. And if any of you are wanting to get professionally trained in sales, I'd be happy to pair you up with one of my coaches for one free session. They can just talk to you, kind of like going to a doctor. If you were going to get a free diagnosis, if you had something going on, well, we'll just work with you for free one time. Just talk to you, see if there's any way we can help you. So you can text me or email me for that. I'm happy to pair you up with one of my coaches if you are looking for a sales breakthrough right now.
Wow. Thank you so much. It's so generous. I really appreciate it. And everyone will too. We are at the end of our program, but I am so grateful to have you, Eric. And so before we close, I always like to ask our guests, what's one last tip? What's one thing you'd like someone to remember after they leave this program?
Well, when I was coming up through the ranks, what I didn't understand in my early 20s is I was a lot better than what I realized. And this is self-image. Self-image is how you view yourself. And what I want to suggest to all of you that are listening, your self-image, how you view yourself, you're far greater than what you even realize. So I want you to know there's some extraordinary untapped potential that exists within you. And coaches like myself, and there's many great coaches out there in the world, we love to pull that greatness out and help you step into your highest level of success. Just always remember your best days are in front of you. And it's been a pleasure having the opportunity to be with all of you today, share these ideas. And Lynn, thank you so much for the opportunity and the invitation.
Thank you, Eric. This is an exciting interview today. Remember those words. You have greatness within you. So go forth and make a big difference out there because the world needs you. We need to have more positive stories. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Roland. We're going to go to our last slide. If you'd like to tune in to more of our shows, if you can pull up our last slide, go to differencemakersmedia.com and click under our shows. You can view archives of this show and past shows. And also you can apply to be a guest on our show by just contacting me on that page. So without further ado, I just want to, again, take one last thank you for everyone being here. If you are watching the replay, also feel free to write a comment or ask a question in this comment stream, because we will get back to you. Thanks again. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Take care.